My European heritage consists of Scottish, Irish, Chinese and Sri Lankan. My children are also Pacific Islander. My family alone represent the diversity that this country has always had, even before white colonisation. I would like to begin by acknowledging and paying my respects to the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, the Latchi Latchi and my mob, the Barkindji mob. I pay my respects to our ancestors and our elders, both past and present, because without their leadership we would not be here today. Someone who looks like me, has the white skin, would not be able to identify strongly and proudly as an Aboriginal woman. Yes, I have white skin. Yes, I have European heritage. But it is my First Nations heritage that sings through my bloodlines the strongest, and that's the one I choose to walk with in my day-to-day life. That is how I choose to live my life and follow the laws of our land, the laws of my ancestors and the laws of our dreaming. I acknowledge the legacy and the footprints that they did, and I thank them for not giving up the fight. I thank the white people that stood with them during challenging times. It is very difficult for all of us during these times, and I acknowledge that. But the fact that in 2020, we still have people of colour dying at the hands of white people and white systems, and we're still having to justify ourselves. We have a Prime Minister who says, I don't understand why we're rising up in Australia. We don't have the same race problems they do. That right there shows us why we still have these problems, because our own leadership does not value and respect who we are as a people, our place, our rightful place in this country and the true history, but also how we're going to move forward. I acknowledge our young ones, because it's for them that many of us fight. I had to sit at the table watching the riots in America, and my son, who carries the dark skin of his father, started to cry. And he goes, I don't understand, I'm scared. What am I supposed to say to him? How am I supposed to go to sleep at night knowing that this could be my son next? That is not a 1950s thing. It is not a 1980s thing. This is a 2020 reality, that if you have a black child, they could be killed by the very systems that are set up to, that are supposed to be set up to support all of us. Equality is bullshit in Australia. The current state of affairs that we have across the world are because the systems that we live under were set up to privilege one group above the rest. And that is a fact. It is not emotion. It is fact. We have the statistics. Government and Western society like their data. We have the numbers for your asses. 432 people have died in police custody since 1991. Those people have names, they had families. And some non-Indigenous people would say, but they were criminals. They were in the justice system. Did they deserve to be murdered? They deserve to go home to their families. We live in a country that arrests and thinks that a 10-year-old should be punished for a crime and should be locked up in institutions. Our institutions are a billion-dollar industry. Black social issues are a billion-dollar industry. They profit systems, and there's high-paying jobs in those systems. The only way we're going to create change is to dismantle the system that's been set up to privilege one group above the rest. I have had people message me and go, I don't understand. I don't understand in 2020 why we're doing these things and what the problem is. 1980, they said the same thing. 1990. 2000, we had the first walk across the bridge for reconciliation. And 20 years later, this is where we are. There's people on the internet, keyboard warriors, saying all lives matter. So why are we only saying that black lives matter or Aboriginal lives matter? I don't see white people having to be frightened to walk down the street wondering if they're going to be arrested just for walking down the street. I don't see white people walking into white homes and shooting people dead for breaching bail, like young Walker. Aunty Tanya Day, Jocelyn, a young woman, a 34-year-old woman, a couple of years younger than me. Her family called the police for help. 6 police officers arrived. She was dead within minutes. People have been charged, but there's never been one conviction. Einstein quotes, "The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result." The last time we stood in solidarity at the greatest swells of Australia was the 1967 referendum, when Aboriginal people became a part of the Australian ecosystem. Yet we're still having to justify our status in this country. We're still having to justify and prove and fight amongst ourselves to prove our connection to country. But like I said, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. If people don't understand how the systems are doing this, grassroots movements matter. But until we dismantle the systems that hold power, or we get more diversity and more people of difference in those systems, we will continue to be doing the same thing 40 and 50 years from now. My grandkids will inherit exactly what we're here for today. Rio Tinto makes billions of dollars off of this country. Billions. And yet they turned around and during National Reconciliation Week, a company that has a reconciliation action plan, a company that publicly states that they support the Uluru Statement from the Heart, yet they blew up a 46,000-year-old Indigenous site, a significant Indigenous site, and all they could say was, "Oops, I'm sorry." Even though they knew. They got that order in 2014, and in 2015, they found tools that were over 10,000 years old. Now, if someone went and blew up the pyramids to go and look for some gold underneath, the world would riot. So why does our culture matter any less? We're constantly saying we are the oldest living culture in the world, yet we don't matter. Our government, our systems, the ones that want to profit off of this country, don't matter. Here in Victoria, we're having to fight to protect 300-year-old birthing trees that are older than the very civilization that we stand among. All for making way for a road. All the way for making way for a road that would save motorists a couple of extra minutes. Yet people are having to camp out there. We're being told not to gather, but it is the Aboriginal way to gather. It is our way to sit and talk. But we've been talking for a long time. People ask, why are people rioting? Why is there so much pain and anger? Because there's only so much pain and anger a spirit can take before it breaks. I myself do not condone the rioting or the violence, but I can understand what drives it. I myself do martial arts because that's the only safe outlet I have that I can channel my anger through, so that I can look to use my voice and not my fists. We need to dismantle the systems. We need to stand together because it is only when we do. And it's not just about having conversations. The fact that friends are saying to me, "I don't understand in 2020" is not good enough. We make up 3% of the population, yet our young people make up 50% of the youth incarceration. That is systemic. Now, if that was any other group, we would get funding to research why that is the case to change it. At one point in time, Don Vale, a youth justice system, incarceration in the Northern Territory was at one point 100% young black people. It is not just our people dying in custody. There was a young woman who went to the hospital 9 times for help when she was pregnant, and she kept getting referred to drug and alcohol and mental health. Her and her child died, and this was in Canberra, our state's capital, because she had an infection that could have been prevented with antibiotics. That child and that woman were not a part of the justice system. They were let down by the health system. Now, I do not imagine that those individuals would imagine themselves to be racist. But because we operate under racist systems, that allows individuals to be racist. And because no one has ever been held accountable by being convicted and spending time in prison, we will continue to see the same thing. So it's about taking action. Words are no longer enough. We've done enough words, we've lost enough lives. And if we want to look at our history, we say we've only had 2 world wars. We had a war the moment European countries started expanding themselves. In America alone, 60 million First Nations people died at the hands of colonisation. In Australia, it says that our numbers were between 1 million and 2 million. Yet by the early 1900s, we numbered less than 50,000. That was murder, that was genocide. Now, if that was to be done today, if another culture or country was to come here and do to us, the majority of us, what the system is doing to black people, Aboriginal people in this country, no one would be sitting back. Everyone would be rioting. Take away a public holiday, take away Australia's ability to have a stubby and have their AFL, and every mongrel would be up rioting. So don't tell me not to be angry. I do not hate, but I am angry and I'm hurting. And it stops with me. I will do everything I can within my sphere of influence to be the best that I can. What I ask of White Australia is to stop bullshitting yourselves, that we don't have a problem in Australia. And every single one of us matters and contributes to that problem. I profit from that. With the white skin that I have, I could take off all of my identifying features. And if I didn't publicly state that I was proud of being Barkindji, I could walk into any shop and not be judged. Yet my sister, who is dark-skinned, cannot. She's looked at differently, she's treated differently. But I say, take action, educate yourselves. If you can have time for Facebook and Snapchat and TikTok, you have time to spend 5 minutes of Googling. It is not enough to say, I didn't learn it at school. Bullshit, we learn more from school than we do we learn more in the world than we do at school anyway. To my Aboriginal brothers and sisters, let us stand up. Let us hold ourselves accountable to the work that our ancestors and our elders died for, so that we can have the jobs and the organisations that we do. Because I see a lot of people in positions of power doing the wrong thing, profiting, our own Aboriginal people profiting. And usually you're not allowed to talk about that. That stuff has to stay behind closed doors. I've had people from this community go to my mother-in-law, tell Chantel she needs to shut her mouth. She's not Barkindji, she's not from here. I grew up out of Dareton. I'm from this community. I grew up in this community. And I've had just as much pain and suffering from my black mob as I have the white mob. I don't fit into either world. I don't want to fit in. I want to weave the worlds together so that I can be proud of exactly where I come from. My non-Aboriginal grandparents. My grandfather died fighting for this country so that we could have the freedom to protest, to raise our voice. My grandmother raised us grandkids to understand to be strong. She went through the Depression. My Aboriginal mother died at 42. She will never see her grandkids grow up. I have to do for her what she couldn't do for me, because she experienced so much pain growing up. I have to be the woman for my kids that my mother couldn't be for me. And I will do everything I can to take responsibility, to get educated, to use these systems to my own benefit so that I can create change. That is the only way. When we stand together, we stop blaming the systems. The systems are at fault, but we need to stand together, because we fight as much amongst ourselves as we do against others. We don't have to like each other, but if we don't come together, nothing is going to change. We need the education, and not the white education. I'm talking about our own education. We need to be sitting with our elders and listening. We need to be learning from each other. We need to be honouring and looking after this country. Recycling, all of these things that we can do in our own homes, not just today, but how are we walking with our culture and living with our culture in our day-to-day lives. Let us all take action in whatever way we can, and that has a groundswell, it has a ripple effect. And soon we outnumber them. Aboriginal people make up 800,000. And we are growing, our babies are growing. But the support for us is growing. We cannot do this alone. And together we can create change. Thank you.